Welcome to the Peak Endurance Podcast. Thank you for joining me. Episode 127 is an interview with Ross Jenkin. Ross is the first person to complete a continuous traverse of the UK's 4 big mountain challenges: the Paddy Buckley Round in North Wales, which is 47 summits, the Denis Rankin Round in Northern Ireland, which is 39 summits, the Ramsay Round in Scotland, 24 summits, and the Bob Graham Round, 42 summits, in the English Lake District. This comes to a total of 152 summits, with 387 kilometres of running and 31,800 metres of ascent. Now that is a lot in anyone's language. Ross comes onto the podcast to share with us how he went about completing this amazing challenge. I hope you enjoy our chat as much as I did, and if you do, it'd be wonderful if you could subscribe and write a review. This helps to boost the ratings of the show and thus increase its audience's reach. Fish on the Run wrote on Apple Podcasts, giving 5 stars, saying, "Loving Isobel's podcast. I've started listening to the Peak Endurance podcast on my long runs, and I've been loving the interviews Isobel has done with some of the world's best runners. So much knowledge is shared, and I can't wait to get through all of her podcasts. Also, really excited about her interviews with everyday runners. Certainly worth a listen, and can't wait to see where she heads next." Thank you so much for those lovely words. I'm glad through my podcast that I'm able to be with you on your long runs. Are you sick of feeling pain when running? And I don't mean the pain of a time trial. Then you need to see the specialists at Health and High Performance. I see them regularly and they help me heaps. They will help you with all of your running injury and performance needs. Head to healthhp.com.au/run, or you can find them easily on Instagram, Health High Performance, where they post heaps of helpful videos. Wild Earth Australia are the online store to help you make the most of the outdoors once we're allowed in it, with top quality gear at great prices. Peak Endurance podcast listeners can use the discount code Peak Endurance, all capitals, to get 10% off at checkout. Head on over to wildearth.com.au to get everything you need for your next adventure that will happen eventually, I'm sure. If you want to get on the waiting list for coaching with me, email me, Isobel with an O, at peakendurancecoaching.com.au. It's not too early to start thinking about your 2022 races, believe you me. And enjoy my chat with Ross, I'm sure you will. Hi, Ross, and welcome to the Peak Endurance Podcast.
Hi, how's it going?
Yeah, pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Thank
you for having me on.
Yeah, no, and thank you for coming on. Now, just could you tell the listeners here in Australia who may not have heard of you a bit about yourself, your running background, and how you got into ultras?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm British. I have been doing mountain running for about 6 or 7 years. Before that, I lived in Spain and did a lot of adventure racing with a Spanish team, and that involved running, but it wasn't my main focus. I was more about mountain biking really at that point. And when I came back to the UK, I found that the adventure racing scene wasn't really well, there wasn't really a scene really. There wasn't many races over here in the north of England, because I suppose in the north of England we've got the mountains, so people are more focused on the running, mountain running, fell running as we call it in the UK, over time I just kind of found I'm better at long stuff rather than the short, fast races. I've done a lot of short races, up to sort of marathon distance. I've done absolutely loads, and in the Lake District where I'm from, we have a lot of fell races. Every mountain has got 1 or 2 fell races on it, and every weekend you can be doing 2 or 3 races if you wanted to. I know some people who do 2 races pretty much every weekend on fell races. Most of them kind of. Do you work in miles or kilometers over there?
Kilometers.
Yeah. So most of the races are about sort of 4 kilometers up to 15 with
Yes.
quite a bit of elevation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just really hard. It's high impact.
Yeah.
It's good competition. I love the competition side of it, but it just hurts too much.
I agree. I think the shorter races hurt too much. I'd prefer that long, drawn-out pain, quite frankly.
Yeah, well, absolutely. The high impact with of the short races, it burns your lungs. You just feel like you're gonna have a heart attack all the time.
Yeah.
So I just kind of got drawn towards longer and longer. And actually, I think the first long race I did was actually an adventure race, which was a 4-day non-stop mountain biking, mountain running, kayaking in Scotland.
Oh,
And that
wow.
was 4 days stop, which was good fun. We came ninth in Europe, so that was quite good.
Excellent.
But then uh, then I heard about like the Bob Graham Round and all of these things, which is where the story begins, really.
Yeah, yeah. And that's right. You recently completed what you called the Big Four at 40, where you
Yeah,
ran the 4 biggest rounds in the UK. Now, can you explain to the listeners what this involved and how you came up with the idea?
yeah. In England, in the Lake District, where this is really close to where I live, there's a 24-hour mountain round, which is approximately 105 kilometers thereabouts. It has about 8,500, 8,600 meters of height gain,
Oh, wow.
and 42 peaks that you summit over that time. It was started by a guy called Bob Graham, a long time ago in the 50s, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
He called it the long walk, but people were made of different stuff back then, and that was a long walk. And these days, it's considered to be one of the sort of toughest fell running challenges. And it is a challenge, not a race or anything like that. You can just do it whenever you want. And if you get within 24 hours, you become part of the Bob Graham Club, and you get invited to a dinner and things like that. So for most fell runners and mountain runners in the UK, it's the lifetime achievement. It's the goal to try and do a Bob Graham in 24 hours. There's also a similar one in Scotland called the Ramsay Round, and another one in Wales called the Paddy Buckley Round, and also one in Northern Ireland called the Denis Rankin Round. About 4 years ago, something like that, maybe 5 years ago, a friend of mine was training to do the Bob Graham, the English one. I was helping him, and we were going out doing recce's on all the sections of the route, and we just training all together, and that's where my distance started building up. But I was definitely not yet a ultra runner at that point. But afterwards, he actually completed his in, I think, 2018. I think it was maybe 17 or 18. I can't quite remember. But afterwards, he said, I kind of wish that I'd trained to do or planned to do the Scottish one and the Welsh one, the Paddy and the Ramsay, around the same time. At that point, we didn't even know the Northern Irish one existed. It is a bit smaller, but it's one of the 4 home nations, so it exists. But yeah, he felt that it would have been much more logical and more sensible to do all three, within one training block, so to speak. So do one, have a rest for a month with a bit more training, do the next, so you don't have to train twice, because the amount of training you have to do, you're doing 4,000 meters of height gain and 120 kilometers a week, every week, to get trained up, ready to go for that. You need to have the hill climbing in your legs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He wasn't there for that. He hadn't planned, and it's quite a lot of planning to do it. So that got me thinking. I thought, oh yeah, well maybe when I'm ready, when I am going to go and do it, I should do all three in 1 year. And I thought, well, that seems a bit unfair on Northern Ireland. And I've lived in Northern Ireland for 10 years. So I thought, well, there must be something in Northern Ireland. And then I can do all four in a year. And in a year sounds achievable and sensible. But as we were chatting and things, I just said, "Oh, I wonder if anyone's ever done them back to back in a week or so." Looked into it. Thought, no one's done it because no one's that stupid. But then that idea, sorry. Yeah, well, that idea just kind of started niggling away, and it was like a brainworm sort of thing, where I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I eventually came to the conclusion that if I'm going to try it in a year, I may as well try it in a week. There's no one's done it before, probably because it's a bit stupid to do it, but it's worth a shot. It's worth a shot. And since I was turning 40 in a couple of years, at the point when I thought of it, I thought, well, big 40, that kind of makes sense. It's a good sort of soundbite. It can be a fundraising challenge and all that sort of thing at the same time. And yeah, so that's where it was. That's where it was born, the idea.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so, so you've created that. Have you turned it into an FKT?
Well, yes and no. It's the big 440 is a combination of 4 separate rounds, and I think it's disrespectful to those 4 rounds in itself, in each of them, to then call it the Ross's round or something for the 4 together. It's not the 4 together as a single thing. It's not my round. It's simply 4 separate ones put together. So there is on the sort of British equivalent of the FKT website, there's something called Go Far website. They have notable completions and things like that. So they have anyone who's done the big 3. And they also have John Kelly's round, his grand round, when he cycled between them. And mine, the big 4, will go on it at some point. It doesn't update it that regularly, so it will go on it. It does.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it's. I think notable is a fair way to put it. It is a total of 152 summits. With around 400 kilometers, 32,000 meters of height gain, all within 1 week, 6 days and 21 hours with 110 hours of moving time. So yeah, it's I completed it. Yeah, I did manage to complete it on the 2nd attempt.
Yeah, that's right. Because when was your first attempt again?
The first attempt was August last year. I actually this week, or August last year, I've been getting Facebook notifications and memories saying, "Oh yeah, this is when you came on in Scotland and did this and all that." So yeah, it's quite an emotional week, really. But
so how did you get between the rounds?
My long-suffering wife drove our camper van, so I was sleeping in the back whilst we were traveling, and she was driving around, and then we had support at each location. So in Scotland we had a support team, and Wales support team, etc., so that she didn't have to do the road support in each location, as well as doing all the driving between. She did some, but not everything.
And so
Yeah.
I know with the rounds in the UK that it's often the locals who come out and support. Is that what happened for you?
Yeah, that's one of the most amazing things, actually. Not once, but twice, I had this amazing team of supporters from all over the place, some traveling from quite a long way to come and support. I think it's an element of people want to be part of something that's a bit interesting and different, so they don't mind. But the Bob Graham round particularly has the ethos that if you are going to go and attempt it, then really you should have helped other people beforehand and recce'd a lot and things like that, so that you are part of the community before you actually go and run it. And I've helped maybe 10, 15 different Bob Graham rounds over the last few years, and I'll help a lot more yet, and help with other FATs and things as well. It's just part of the ethos, and you're not meant to pay for a guide to take you around and all of that sort of thing. So, but the problem was, for Northern Ireland particularly, but for Scotland and for Wales, going out and recceing and helping other people on their rounds in those areas was a bit difficult, time consuming and expensive to travel. I mean, we have to get a ferry or a flight to Belfast to get across to Northern Ireland, and it just wasn't feasible to go and do that on a regular basis when you have to train, you have work, you have a family, all these things. So for those three locations, I was relying on people just coming out of the woodwork and helping me I didn't even know most of them. The vast majority were just complete strangers who volunteered their time and helped me to achieve this pretty awesome goal. So yeah, the amount of support I've had has been amazing.
But that's what's so wonderful about the ultra running community, really, isn't it?
It certainly is, yeah. It's one of the things that has kept me in the ultra running community rather than going back to the shorter races as well, because I suffer with depression and PTSD from my job, and I think the majority of people in ultra running are a little bit broken. And when you're running along beside someone who you inevitably find someone at a similar pace in a race that you end up running along beside for a long time, and they you end up talking about everything and anything, and you find out that they're suffering in a similar way, and they can help in this way, and you help them in a different way. So yeah, it's the support in the community. It's lots of like-minded people, and it's just been absolutely amazing.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with you 100%. And that leads us on to who you said you were thinking of doing it, originally for a charity, and you did. So did you want to tell listeners a bit about the charity?
Yeah, there's the three charity groups that I've split my fundraising between. There's Mountain Rescue. In the UK, Mountain Rescue is completely voluntary, not government funded or anything. So they need huge amounts of funds, to get helicopters out and all that sort of thing. They need massive amounts of funds. So any funds that they get is great, and it's all normal people in normal jobs who get a phone call or a text on the phone saying someone's broken the leg, someone's lost, whatever it is, come out and help. And so yeah, there's loads of mountain rescue groups around the UK, and that was one of my fundraising targets, to help them. The Dogs Trust is a group in the UK that rescue abandoned and mistreated dogs. I'm a massive dog lover, so also supporting them. But I think the most important one for me was a organization called Campaign Against Living Miserably, CALM. Yeah, and they are a mental health charity who initially started to help men with problems, mental health problems, and who are feeling suicidal. And that kind of resonated with me, because as men, for generations, we've been encouraged to hide our feelings, and crying is girly, and being a wimp, and all of showing your emotion is a terrible thing apparently. But actually, you have to talk about it. So I've made my mission, apart from the running, is to encourage people to talk about it. And I, on my social media, I do talk about when I'm having bad days, or the fact that I'm off work at the moment for depression. I talk about that. I wanted to do something with a charity to help that. And the last update I had from them, they had received around what was it, about £2,300, something like that, maybe 2,500, around that amount, and that has gone towards answering around 250 calls, which 250 calls, that might be one person who's called 250 times, but the chances are there's an awful lot of people who have rung them in crisis saying, help me. So that feels pretty good, that I've directly helped people through the fundraising, directly helped people to maybe just they needed someone to talk to, but it could be that it saved their lives.
So you don't know how many lives you've saved through those calls alone.
So that's a really important part of it. And my fundraising page is still open on Virgin Money Giving, Ross Jenkin Big 4 at 40. So it's still open, and I'm still.
I'll grab the link off you later and put that in the show notes as well. I also appreciate that I really think it's important on things like social media is not always showing just the highlights of our life, but showing, the times when we're not having the best moments.
Absolutely. And for young people, it's so important. As adults, I think we can appreciate that social media can be a bit of a bubble that is just so rosy and positive all the time for the majority of people. But my daughter is a perfect example of that, where she sees very positive messages all the time. But I think it's so important for people to know that actually these people who achieve great things also have really, really rough times sometimes and struggle with life in general. I think that's important. And I've had a lot of messages from people who are genuinely appreciating the fact that I'm being open and honest about what's going on. And one particular message which says, one person has messaged me several times. She was a friend before I was open about it. She's got 2 sons, and she has said that her 2 sons struggle a little bit, and they didn't like struggling. They didn't like admitting that they were struggling. They're only young. They're only maybe 11, 12 years old, something like that.
Wow.
But she shows them my posts saying, look what Ross does. He does this amazing running stuff. And also he suffers. And he's got an important job, but he still suffers. So it's okay to suffer. You just need to talk about it. So it's really nice and feels good to know that you can help people like that.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And that's good that she's open with it about them too. In regards to this, like you were talking about the training, how did you then prepare for such a big effort?
Again, a very good long-suffering wife. But I work shift work as well. So the bonus of working shifts means that when my daughter is at school, my wife's at work, I can then go out for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours on the fells running, and it doesn't really affect home life that much. DIY in the house suffered, and Maria did most of the cooking a lot of the time and things like that. Definitely didn't spend as much time in the house as I would usually. But
Yeah.
I was doing about 100 to 120 kilometers a week.
Yep.
And most of that was on fells. But also you need to keep up the speed work on the flat as well to make sure you're not just getting slow as you get up on the mountains, and that's it.
Yeah.
But around between 2,000 and 5,000 meters of height gain every week as well.
Yeah. So you practice your hiking as well?
Yeah. Well, the fells here, they I don't know what it's like in where you are, but I know in the Alps, most of the mountains, when you're in the Alps, you're walking or running on big prepared trails that you could pretty much drive a 4x4 up. In the Lake District and in my local hills right beside me, there's none of that.
No, that's
there's
right. Yeah.
barely any trails. It's rough grass or heather or rock.
You can't really run on that, can you?
Not uphill, no. So when you're running uphill and there's absolutely no path, it is definitely hiking. You get used to the rough terrain for flat and the downhill, and still running then. But it's quite a unique thing over here. The mountain routes are at most on little tiny what we would call trods or sheep trails, that sort of thing. Little tiny lines that are 30 centimeters wide, sort of thing. And that'll be some of the best paths you'll be on. So yeah, hiking is a big part of it for sure. And when it came to the big four, the first round I spent most of the time running in Wales, apart from the steep ups. The second round in Northern Ireland, that is, like I said before, it's the easiest one. It's about 2,500 meters less of height gain and about 50k less in distance. That one is mostly running for sure. Yeah. Then Scotland, it was mostly hiking, I'd say. By that point, I was pretty tired. And it took 29 hours in Scotland. Some pretty spectacular scenery, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine,
yeah, knife edge ridges.
If you've practiced your hiking, you can hike pretty fast, really.
Absolutely, yeah. It's about keeping a good pace. Billy Bland is a man who had the record on the Bob Graham Round until it was beaten a couple of years ago by Killian Jornet. Billy Bland famously did the Bob Graham Round with his son as a walk, and he still did it in 22 hours.
Wow, yeah.
So he was hiking. Fast hiking, but just hiking, no running. So it is possible to do, but you need to have a very good pace and you need to not stop.
Yeah. Now, what did you do for nutrition? Because that would have been really important for you to be able to sustain the effort for so long.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Before doing the big four, my normal sort of nutrition was sandwiches as the savoury option with a packet of crisps or nuts. I've been using an energy bar called Voom bars for quite a long time, and they are kind of a sugary substitute for a gel, but they're in a bar, very easy digestible and really tasty. So I had it all set up for each leg. I had a bag of Voom bars, sandwich, crisps, chocolate bar, different things for each leg, because each round is split into 5 legs. So I had a food bag for each leg.
Okay.
And then other things to eat between the legs, like rice pudding pots, baked beans pots, pot noodles, those sorts of things that were prepared by the road support crew. So the first round, it was extremely hot. That was Paddy Buckley in Wales. I say extremely hot. It was about 28 degrees, which might not sound hot, but Yeah, but it's also very humid, so
Yeah.
it was unbearable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so difficult to do anything. And I just found I couldn't eat anything at all. I was drinking
Yeah.
so much, but I just couldn't eat. And so, and the bready sort of things like sandwiches, I couldn't swallow it. It was just unpleasant. So for the second round, I had to change it up completely. I remember I was in the van with Maria. She was preparing my food for the Denis Rankin in Northern Ireland, and she said, "Okay, so what do you want in your sandwiches?" I'm like, "I don't want sandwiches. I don't know what I want. I don't know.
What sandwiches?"
Just not sandwiches." So she suggested having a wrap, like a Mexican tortilla wrap, with an omelette. It has an egg omelette in the wrap, with ham and a little bit of cheese, just a little bit of cheese, just for an extra bit of flavour. And it was the best thing I could have eaten. It just went down so easily and so tasty, lots of salt in there. It was great. So that became the savoury option for every round from then on. Between the legs, do you have pot noodles in over there? Yeah, so pot noodles, trash food, but they're great for mid ultras.
Definitely.
So that was most of my nutrition: Voom bars, chocolate, and the wraps with pot noodles.
And the wraps with the egg, well, that's also protein, which you need for the muscle breakdown.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And one of the key things often people forget is during an ultra, you need to start repairing your muscles during it as well. So you need to have protein during an ultra. You don't obviously need protein in a 2-hour run, but in 10, 15, 20 hours, absolutely, you need it. You need protein in there as well. And it's not just glucose and carbohydrate. No,
I totally agree. Did you get any sleep, or were you able to? I assume you were sleeping in the car or the van. Were you able to sleep at all?
Yeah, one of the good things really was because the second round was in Northern Ireland, and we have to get ferries across. And the added inconvenience, but also a bonus for this, was we couldn't go to Ireland. We weren't allowed to go to Ireland because of COVID. So the ferry from Wales it's actually from Liverpool to Belfast was an 8-hour ferry.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So had we gone from Wales to Dublin, which is what we did last year, that's only about a 3-hour ferry. So you didn't really have time for proper sleep. But on the 8-hour ferry, we actually got a cabin and had a bed and a shower. It was great.
Wonderful. and
so
you didn't have an option, so you had to.
So. Absolutely. Yeah. So no, that was a real bonus to have that sleep, and I just was out cold. Ate a big meal on the boat, and then just passed out basically. It was a real bonus, and a nice hot shower as well.
Yeah, the shower would have been rejuvenating. So, did you have any challenges along the way?
Oh yeah. The first major challenge was the heat in Wales. I got cramp non-stop. Even though I was drinking loads, I just wasn't getting enough food in. So I got so bad cramp and just felt faint because I couldn't eat. And I was mentally struggling as well at that point, because I was thinking, how am I kidding myself that I'm going to go and do another 3 rounds, but I can't even do the first one? And I was really suffering until the sun went down. As soon as the sun went down, my mood picked up, the cramp stopped, and I could then start eating again. It was like a literally having a light switch, switched the sun off, and everything went okay again. But as I got to the end of the round, Maria, my wife, was basically saying it was the leg five, sorry, before leg five. So we weren't sure I was going to have time to finish it to be able to get on the boat, and that was crucial. We had to make the boat.
Of course.
I had built in about 2 hours leeway in my schedule, just in case it was going slowly.
Yeah.
But that 2 hours had been eaten into because of the heat. I'd gone much slower. So by the time I got to the end of leg four, I was close to saying, well, I've got to stop here rather than finish the round because I haven't got time.
Oh, wow.
And my leg five support guy is a guy called Warren Renkel. He's actually a coach as well, and he knows the mountains around there really, really well. And he basically said, "You've got 3 hours 45 to get round this leg. I should be able to get you around it, but if we're going too slow, we can escape down before the last two peaks, and still make it within 3:45 with no problem at all. So let's give it a try."
Yeah.
I ended up, I was very motivated to finish at that point. So I ended up actually running that section in 3 hours 20.
Wow.
Absolutely smashed it. It was kind of like a leg five time if you're only doing leg five. So
fantastic.
Yeah, I got back to the van and vomited, but that's not the point. We got on the boat in time, could rest, could eat, everything else. So that was the first challenge for sure. Northern Ireland went pretty smoothly, really. Minor problem where someone forgot to pick up the food bag for leg two. Yeah. So luckily I had a bit of extra left in my bag, and everyone else who was helping on that leg chipped in a little bit, and so it was fine. But yeah, there was a moment of, what? Seriously? Can't believe you forgot it.
Oh no.
But these people are there to help you, and
that's right.
It's not fair to get angry with them just because they've made a minor mistake. And they were navigating. They'd travelled up from Dublin, from all over the place to help. So no, it's just one of those things. It worked out well. It was fine. And yeah, pretty much Northern Ireland went really well. Finished it in 23 hours. Deliberately going quite slowly because last year when I attempted it, Northern Ireland was where the problems started for me. I went way too quickly. I was on for about a 20-hour finish, and what's the point? I had 24 hours to do it. Why go 20? And as I got towards the end of it, I was developing tendonitis in both shins, right the way from sort of the middle of my shin down to the top of my foot on both legs, and it was extremely painful. So that completely scuppered the final round. But it was actually not the final round, but it ended up being my final round last year. So this year I went much slower and just enjoyed being out. I mean, it's still hard, of course it's hard, physically and sleep wise. I was getting really sleep deprived by the end of it, but yeah, it went well. Then Scotland, the Charlie Ramsay, again that went pretty well, but I was out for a very long time, 29 hours I was out for, and by the time I was around the sort of 24-hour mark, I was suffering from sleep deprivation, massively suffering, stumbling along on these knife-edge ridges with
yes, of course,
600-700 meter vertical drops on each side of the mountain. I was actually really scared myself. Usually that sort of terrain I'll bounce over no problem at all, and it doesn't worry me. But because I was stumbling around and I could recognize that I was, was, and my brain wasn't working properly.
Yeah.
I was thinking, just one stumble or slip here, and that's it. I even started seeing things as well. I saw a giant alien-sized praying mantis in the rock. So yeah, the sleep deprivation is very real.
Yes. Oh, I know. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So how did you navigate that sleep deprivation part? Like, how did you stop yourself from falling off?
Well, it's a question to an extent of mind over matter for sure. Whereas very much concentrating on what was going on. I had one fella behind me and another fella in front of me. The guy in front of me, Pav, he was doing the navigation, and the guy behind me was looking after my welfare, basically. And unfortunately, by that point, we'd pretty much run out of anything caffeine based.
Oh, no.
we were down to the last half bar of caffeine caffeine based products. So I was kind of like eating a little bit, thinking, yeah, this is gonna work. And it was like I had a 15-minute window of being alert, and then it'd crash again. So the caffeine just didn't last long. So I used what we had left to get across this knife edge dangerous part. Well, particularly dangerous. It was all pretty dodgy up there. When you see there is going to be a film coming out. So when you see the film, you see what I'm talking about with the dodgy terrain.
Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, well, no, I haven't seen any of it yet.
You can't really remember that properly.
No, absolutely. There's a lot of it that's a bit blurry for sure. But yeah, in Scotland, that was the only real danger or worry. There was nothing too dangerous or bad this time. Last time, Scotland was the first round that I did.
Okay.
And actually, it went really well up to the point it didn't. I was going a really good pace, and I was loving it. But on the last leg, a storm came in, a named storm. So the wind was absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, that would have been scary too.
We had to abandon it because it was too dangerous.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was really quite dangerous.
Yeah. So what was a high point from the run?
Well, so many ups and downs, really. I think it kind of goes without saying that the absolute high point was finishing.
Of course. Yeah.
But the final round in England, the Bob Graham round, that in many ways the whole of the Bob Graham round was the high point, because I'd taken a bit longer on the previous ones, and I had to go for a massage between Scotland and England to try and loosen up some tendons and things. It meant my start time was about 8 hours later than I had planned for. So most of the support runners for England couldn't do it anymore. And they all had to be completely rearranged. But what that did mean is the people who originally hadn't said that they would support me because they thought I'd be going too fast, then could. And that friend from right at the very beginning 5 years ago, he was able to come and join me. He hadn't intended to, because he's been badly injured for quite a long time, and he's not running at the moment at all. But because he knew I was walking by that point, he said, yes, I'm in. I'm coming for sure. And several other people showed up who I didn't arrange any of this. This was Maria, my wife, and a friend, Kat, who arranged it all behind the scenes. So I didn't even know who was showing up. I just knew someone was. And another friend who's been injured for a long time, he came and did a couple of legs with me because I was going at a slow pace. he could manage it. And so I ended up having people who are good friends with me for the majority of that round, which was just, it was absolutely amazing to have.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And some people who were very unexpected, like my ex-girlfriend, who I haven't seen or spoken to for about 15, 20 years, her new husband showed up, and I've never met the guy. It was a lovely round. It was a very surreal moment.
That is surreal. It's odd, but how nice is that? That's cool.
Absolutely. And then I suppose one of the real high points was at the end of leg 4 on the Bob Graham. Right at the end, last summit before we descend down into a village called Velkeld, it's on Clough Head. There's a older gentleman standing on the top of the mountain who just said, "Hi, another one for your team. I don't think you know me, but I knew you years ago. It's Derek Fryer." And I said, "Derek? No way!" I totally remembered him. He actually taught me navigation about 25, 30 years ago, and I haven't seen him since. So in a way, he kind of started this whole journey. So it was absolutely amazing to see him there. And he ran that little bit and then ran the end of the whole Bob Graham with me as well. So Derek Fryer, what a guy. He's about 70, 75, something like that, 80 maybe.
Good on him.
Yeah, it's great to have him there. Yeah, just a really lovely moment. And then again, for the last leg, another guy showed up who I hadn't seen for a couple of years. He's not even a runner at all. He rock climbed, but he knew I wasn't going to be running, so he showed up and helped. So yeah, it was a really, really nice round. I had a couple of very low points, but
yeah, I mean that's part of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like it that your high points are to do with people and the community.
100%. 100%. It's been all about the people. Bringing these people out from the woodwork and meeting new people. I've made some lifelong friends. The Pav, who I mentioned in Scotland, he's been. I've met up with him a few times since, and he's definitely a lifelong friend. And another guy, Ben, he's going to be a friend forever. I'm sponsored now by Dinafit. It's an outdoor running and skiing brand, and they support me with kit. And the rep in the UK is a guy called Gus. He's become a great friend. I'm going to his stag do in a few weeks' time. I never knew him before this whole journey. When I approached him at a race in Scotland 2.5 years ago and just said to him, "Right, you need to give me kit." And he says, "Why?" I said, "Well, I'm going to attempt to do this crazy thing." And he says, "Okay then." And that was it. It worked quite well. Yeah. So yeah, I've just made friends. I made loads of friends and connected with old friends who I haven't seen for years and years, which it's been the best thing about it for sure, is all that. And then the fundraising on top has been great too. Yeah,
that's awesome. So how's your recovery been?
Yeah, I'm still recovering. I mean, this was 2 months ago now, 2.5 months ago, something like that, but I'm still definitely in the process of recovering. I mentally and physically. When you think after an average ultra, that most people will have the post-ultra mental sort of dip in the week afterwards. Well, this is a week-long ultra, so the dip's pretty significant. I had actually taken 2 weeks off work afterwards, specifically for physical and mental recovery. And yeah, for sure, the mental trauma and everything of the Big Four has contributed to me being off work now, but it's not the main reason I'm off work. Is by far the main reason is PTSD from something I went to at my job. But the mental side, it's kind of coming to terms with it. I've achieved this amazing thing, which for me has been my entire life for 2.5 years.
Yeah, and it kind of leaves a void, doesn't it?
But yeah, and also it's the idea that for me, Big Four has been my normality.
Yeah.
So I kind of think of it as not a big deal.
Yeah.
But actually, it is a pretty big deal. So now I've finished it. What now?
Yeah.
That feeling of what now. It is, like I say, it's a void in my life that I've been trying to fill, and not very successfully. So I'm trying to plan and think of other ideas and other challenges. I don't want to do anything quite as mental, quite as
do you think you would ever do it again to beat the time that you did?
I'll never do it again. No. That's definite. I'm not doing it again. My target was within 7 days, and that's what I did.
Yeah, and that's enough, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, each individual round, separately, I will go back to. Well, Northern Ireland, I've done within 24 hours.
Yeah.
4 weeks after the Big Four, I went and did the Bob Graham again just to get that within 24 hours.
Yeah.
I did it in 23 dead.
Yeah.
So that was done. In the Bob Graham, it was 32 hours. So 23 was a significant difference.
Yes, significantly.
I need to go back to Wales, and I need to go back to Scotland separately to go and do those in 24 hours. But it's.
I'm sure you'll know that, because I mean you've got to think of the cumulative fatigue when you were doing them. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's that level of endurance doesn't really leave for a long time. Even though I'm not doing massive amounts of running at the moment. I'm up to maybe 60k a week, something like that. But I'm also just trying to enjoy it.
Yes.
Rather than purely training, is going out and having fun on the hills, and not worrying about training so much at the moment. And that's the physical recovery side of it. I mean, I can still feel right now as I'm talking to you a bit of tendonitis in my shins. I can feel it there. It's not significant, but just niggling.
Yeah. So you want to be careful too. Yeah.
Yeah. I did a race at the weekend just gone. Only a small one, a 10k obstacle course race.
Oh, that's a bit of fun.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that. I thought it's not a big race, as in there's not a lot of people, and it's quite sort of niche.
Yes.
There's not many obstacle course races in the north of England, so but well, there's a good chance I'll do reasonably well, but I'm just going to go and enjoy it. Have fun. Swimming through rivers and jumping into mud and things like that. I know it was a good laugh. I did all right. I came fourth overall, and
awesome.
first vet as well. So yeah, it was. I was quite pleased with that, really.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah, but it's the shortest race I've done in a long time.
Yeah, one of my next questions was going to be what's next for you, but obviously you're still thinking about that.
Yeah, well, I've got one fairly major thing coming up in October. That is a World Series adventure race. So it's
where's
in
that one?
Galicia in Spain. Same team as my Spanish team. It's the same people. And that will be around 600 kilometers over the course of a week, mountain biking, running, and kayaking.
Okay.
So it's going to be quite tough, but being in a team means that I don't think I'm going to be the weakest or slowest in the team. So it should be at a pace which is quite comfortable most of the time. The bit I'm not looking forward to really is the kayaking. I love kayaking, but it's 100 kilometers of kayaking.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Oh,
So that's going to be quite hard work.
yeah.
But the rest of it
It'll be
is
fun.
achievable.
Yeah.
It'll be right. And that's in October, so we're hoping that'll go reasonably well.
Yeah.
After that, as in challenge-wise or FKT-wise, got a couple of ideas, but nothing fixed yet. There won't be anything until next springtime anyway, spring, summer, due to daylight hours fading now. I may do a winter Bob Graham, just because it's local, and it's only 24 hours, so you can kind of plan for it relatively easily compared to.
You say only 24 hours.
yeah. But that's the problem is
yes.
One of the hardest things about the Big Four was actually the logistics, the planning of it all. I had over 50 people helping, supporting in different ways. And it was a crazy amount of support and everything. It was hard. It was hard. That side of it was hard.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. May I ask what you do for a job?
Yeah, I'm actually a police officer.
Okay. I figured that. And I may have even read that. Yeah. So completely understandable.
Yeah.
PTSD.
Yeah, some of the things that we deal with, it can be very challenging. And yeah, I obviously can't talk that much about what we deal with, but you can imagine that the worst possible scenario pretty much is why I'm suffering at the moment. I don't mind talking about it to people face to face because it is the incident was in the press, but I shouldn't say anything too much on a more public forum.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But it's completely understandable. So just a couple of questions to finish off. What has been the best piece of running advice you've ever received?
Sorry, my wife's just leaving. Bye. Best piece of running advice. Probably when you're training, try to emulate what you would do in a race. So if you are going to run down a steep hill or whatever, and then you're going to get to the bottom and start hiking up the other side, don't start hiking until you would in the actual race. So try and keep it running right the way through to the point where you're going to start hiking, and then keep it going. Don't don't just sort of slow down to a snail pace. Try and keep the pace up as much as you can. That's probably one of the best things in actual running, fell running advice. I suppose the other thing would be make sure your training is varied, because just running all the time and not doing strength and conditioning and not doing cycling, not doing other things, it ends up with injuries. So strength and conditioning in training, 100% is so important.
How much cycling would you do in a week?
Not enough.
Yes. It's hard when you're addicted to running or love running.
Yeah, absolutely. The town that I work in is about 20k from my home, so I relatively regularly would cycle into work, either cycling or running. So I'd say at most 100k a week of cycling. Probably more like averaging about 50 to 60k a week. I should do a lot more. I just don't.
No. But it's just interesting. I'm finding more and more runners are embracing cycling, which I think is awesome. So
it's definitely worthwhile. And everyone says that cycling is great for runners. Running's not great for cycling.
No, it doesn't go the other way, and that's fine. But it's great for runners. I totally agree. I used to be a mountain biker myself, so that's probably why I'm biased as well. What is the funniest or most embarrassing running moment you've ever had?
Oh, Oh, that's a
Have you had
interesting
any
question.
just funny moments, like instances that have happened?
Oh yes, I was doing a race at Langstrath in the Lake District, where beginning of the race, excuse me. Yeah, the beginning of the race, the race director explained the route and said, when you get to a certain point, you must follow the flags.
Yeah.
Don't go anywhere else except following the flags. So that's what I did. And there was runners around where these flags were, going in every direction, all over the place. And I was like, well, he said, follow the flags. What's going on? So I just carried on following the flags, but then the flags disappeared.
Oh
And there
no.
was no path. I'm like, oh well, I'll just keep going the straight line. And I got to a gate, went through the gate, and thought, well, I'm pretty sure that I've gone off the route here. So I'll just carry on down back to the start of the race. I knew maybe it should have been another kilometre or so longer than where I was, but I wasn't sure where it was meant to go. I had a map in my pocket, but I thought, well, I've gone wrong anyway, so it doesn't matter. I'll just go down. And as I was running back down to the end, I went past the marshal, and the marshal said, "Well done, first position."
Oh,
I'm like, oh, well, just in case I'm right, I'm going to absolutely fly down here to make sure no one passes me.
no.
And I crossed the line first, no problem at all. And sat waiting for about 5 minutes before the next person came across the line. But when I went across the line, the race director says, "You're not Carl Bell," because Carl Bell is like the British champion and all this sort of thing. He was running in that race.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No, I'm not." I said, "Well, you must have cheated."
No.
"No, I didn't cheat. Don't call me a cheat. Thank you." But I had beaten Carl Bell by about 5 minutes because he went on the right route and I followed the flags.
What were the flags for then?
Well, a member of the public had moved them.
Oh no. Oh.
So I did what I was told. I
Yes.
just did the wrong route.
Oh, that's
So I still get stick from my mates about beating Carl Bell. There's no chance I could beat him in any other way except by cutting a massive corner.
That's funny. That is a funny one. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing everything about your huge run that you did. And I will put the links for the charity in the show notes. So, for very worthy causes. And congratulations. And yeah, thank you so much.
No problem at all. Thank you.
And also, I wanted to ask, where can people follow you when you're talking about on social media? Where can people follow you on social media?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. That's probably the best place. Roscoe.run. So that's ROSCO.run. You'll find me there. I'm also on Facebook. Everything goes on Facebook as well, but generally Instagram is easier. Ross Jenkin. I think on Facebook it's just facebook.com/Ross Jenkin.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll add those links as well if people can't remember once they get home from their run from listening to this. So.
No problem at all.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Bye.